Ladies and gentlemen, today is October 27, 2018, and this is the Can Kale Show, episode 376, where we learn to be better artists. My name is Kienan Lafferty, and I would like to welcome you to on a show on creating animation in Photoshop. Today we're going to be learning about how to create a cute little animation like this, very reminiscent of a dating sim, a cool little anime dating sim, or mobile game like Dragalia Lost. Very inspired by this. In fact, I basically just stole the style for Mika. And today what we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing the same treatment for Mocha, the awesome counterpart to our beautiful maid of metal. Both of them are technically maids of metal. But I'm going to be teaching you guys how to create a similar animation, all in Photoshop. We're going to be having a good time with that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing that you want to consider when you are drawing this is make sure that you have a character that looks good. Now, how do you do that? Well, I've done tons of tutorials about how to draw anime and this and that. But you want to make sure that you have good contrast, and you want to make sure that you have specifically line art that is clean on the outside, right? I mean, this isn't as clean as it could possibly be, but in general, a lot of the line art on the edges is very, very dark black outlines, and this allows the character to stand apart from the background, okay? So that is lesson one. Make sure you have some nice clean edges and black outlines, and then on the inside, you can go ahead and take your the color picker. By the way, you should be following along. If you downloaded this PSD on Patreon, you can go ahead and color pick all of these colors and see that these are in fact lighter colors. And what this does is it lends to a nice soft inner line work, and then you have a harsh kind of clean outer line work. Okay, so that's the first thing that you want to do. First thing that you want to consider. Second thing is make sure that you know which way your character is going to be moving in from. In this case, I want Mocha to be coming in from the left side. You can see in the Mika version, you can see that she kind of slides in from the left, right in from the left. Okay, and because of that, I had to make sure that there was enough artwork there on the left side so that way her hair wouldn't get cut off, because you can see if I had Mocha coming in from the other side, like there's not enough cape there. So make sure that there's enough movement, enough pixels on the edges of your character so that way they can move. Okay, and speaking of moving, let's go ahead and talk about how to make that move happen. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make sure that all of your assets, well actually before we move into the move, let's talk about all of the assets that you're going to be needing to create and grouping together. Okay, now the first one is the eye blink. It's as simple as creating just a single frame of the eyes blinking. Now, the way that you make this look good, and this is going to come in handy, especially when we're talking about the mouth in about 2 seconds, is you want to consider the edges. Edges, edges, edges. Think of these eyeballs as moving straight up and down. You want to make sure that the edges do not change, okay? See how when I turn this on and off, see how as I open the eyes up, they haven't changed the width, right? This is to represent the eye, and the eyelashes are in fact a common or a constant force that is not changing. Okay, same thing with the mouth. The flap should look like this. See how the edges of the mouth, again, the edges of the mouth do not change very much, right? It's very, very minimal changes. Okay, here's what it looks like. Here's what it looks like if you do it wrong. It's gonna look like this, okay? See how the edges of the mouth are way too big? This mouth flap is not suitable for our pretty awesome Black Knight Mocha, okay? We're not allowed to do this. So let's go ahead and get rid of that monstrosity. Now that we have our mouth flaps and our eyes blinking, now we can group all of those together. The reason why you want to make sure that you group all those together, you can see here the folder is called Mocha. You want to group all of those together because as you move this, wherever you end up putting it, see how the mouth flaps and the eyes are still in the proper space, okay? It's one of the most important reasons that you can group it. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead and open up Timeline. Timeline is accessed through going through Window, and then you're going to click, you guessed it, Timeline. Clicking it again makes it disappear. Who would have thought? Okay, so you go ahead to Timeline, and then you're going to want to set up some important, very, very important key bindings that are going to come in handy as we go through this editing process. So you're going to go into, I think I did that a little bit fast, go to Edit, and then go to Keyboard Shortcuts. And then from here, you're going to go to your panel menus. You're going to scroll all the way down to that beautiful timeline video. And then you're going to scroll down through here. you're going to want to bind, again, this is my personal preference, but you can choose keys that work for you, don't worry. You're going to want to bind something to next frame and previous frame. I've chosen F5 and F6 to kind of cycle back and forth. That allows me to kind of check my frames, make sure that they're looking good. And then you're going to want to go to trim start at playhead and trim end at playhead. I've chosen control and the left and right angle brackets, which is right above your right enter key. This is going to allow us to trim layers. Trim layers, which, can you guess why we would be doing that? Yes, that is of course why we're going to be doing it. We're going to be clipping and making little versions of our blink and our mouth flaps. But first what we're going to do, actually, I guess we can do that all together. Yeah, we can do that all together because, let's start with the eye and the mouth flaps. So it's as simple as this, okay? The eye is going to be very, very simple. The eye flap works just like this. By the way, you'll want to make sure that your timeline frame rate is set to 30. You can do that by just heading over to the right side, click this little tiny insignificant menu bar, and go to set timeline frame rate. I like to choose 30. It's very nice, just uploads really well to Instagram, YouTube. That's like the baseline for a lot of things. And yeah, you should be doing that. So make sure you're at timeline 30 because that will affect your timing, which is very, very important as you're about to find out. Now, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go in here and you are going to go to your eye layer. You can pick anywhere on your timeline, kind of maybe just in the center. Let's start at the 5th frame. And what you're going to do is you're going to hit control and the left angle bracket. What's that going to do? Look at that. It just trimmed it to the playhead. Just trimmed it to the playhead. Isn't that awesome? Move 1 frame over and then hit control right angle bracket. And that is going to give you a blink, but make sure that your layer is actually turned on over here, okay? Make sure that your eye is turned on. And what you can see now is when you hit spacebar, oh, look at that, we got a blink. Oh my gosh, she's coming to life. This is great. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and hit Control J, okay? You might be tempted to say, oh wow, okay, I've done all that work. Let's go ahead and just hit Control C, Control V. Wow, I have another eye blink. Great, but you know what the problem with that is? Oh my gosh, it just made the eye blink appear in the center of the canvas. We can't have that. No, we will not have that. Destroy that immediately. What you're going to do is hit Control J, which is going to duplicate your layer and keep it in the same area, okay? So now what you can do is repeat that process with your new eye copy. Hit Control left angle bracket. Then move 1 frame over, which you can also hit F6, right? You can hit F6 to move 1 frame over, and then hit the right angle bracket. And what you'll see now that, oh my gosh, she can now blink twice. She can now blink twice, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't that great? Now, the key with blinking characters is you want to make sure that they are not, I'm going to go ahead and make another one. You want to make sure that they are not ever blinking at the same rate, because here's what it looks like if that is the case. Okay, let's go ahead and make a section of 4 blinks. Watch what happens when she blinks at the same rate every single time. Feels robotic, doesn't it? It doesn't look right. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're spacing out your blinks. Now, there's a couple little subtle tricks that I found that work really well. But overall, you want to make sure that your blinks are very not predictable. Sometimes there might be 1 and then 2 in a row. Now watch what happens now that I've spaced these out. See, feels much more natural. It's not predictable, as is blinking in real life, okay? So there are our blinks for now. Let's go ahead and move into the mouth flaps. The mouth flaps, however, tend to look good. Notice how we just talked about the eye blinking cannot seem robotic or predictable. However, the mouth flap can. The mouth flap actually benefits from looking robotic. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing right now. And there is an equation. There is a mouth flap equation that I found that works really well. And that is, of course, going to be 3 frames off, or 4 frames on, 3 frames off. Okay, so what you're going to do is you are going to trim your mouth flap, same thing, control left angle bracket or key of your choice. Then you're going to hit your next frame, F6 in this case, 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay, or is it 4? Or it's 3, it's 3. Because what happens is you will now trim it and you will have a total of, so 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, okay? Because see, like technically there's another frame, but it disappears on the next one. Timeline's kind of finicky like that. I'm sure that this totally makes sense to animators, but for people just getting into this, it can be a little confusing, right? But just to make sure, you can scrub through this and ask yourself, is that mouth flap happening for 1, 2, 3, 4 frames and then going away? If that's the case, then you have just graduated from Mouth Flap Academy and now you're ready to continue, because the next trick is you want to have 3 frames here. So go 1, 2, 3. And then your mouth flap once again is present. Actually, I just realized that because of the way that timeline works, I think that it's 4 frames on and 4 frames off for these mouth flaps. So, but the way that you do that, strangely, is by going 1, 2, 3, right? I'm advancing here, right? Take a look down here. 1, 2, 3 frames, then trim it, okay? And then you go from the end of it, 1, 2, 3. So let's go ahead and duplicate that. Oh, that's kind of cool. Duplicating it at the place where you want it actually starts the playhead there. That's really cool. So what you can do is you can just go 1, 2, 3, Control trim that, go to the end of that, 1, 2, 3, then hit Control J. Boom. That's awesome. Just saving us a step. 1, 2, 3, trim the end of that, go to the end of it, 1, 2, 3. Boom. There you go. 1, 2, 3. I'm sure you can get this down very quickly. Now, watch what happens. We now have a character who is blinking and mouth flapping at us. I just realized, I think that the mouth flap is happening too slowly. Oh, no, wait. No, that's fine. It's totally fine. It might look a little bit slow when you are viewing this sometimes because your computer needs to render through the frames before it plays at the full frame rate. And you can take a look at the frame rate at the very bottom here. You can see it's playing at 30 frames per second. However, when it's rendering for the first time, it will sometimes dip below that. You can see it's going to like 20, 26, 16. That is normal. That is normal, and that will happen. But once it renders through, it should go through the second time. Oh, here's another really important thing that you can do is see how it's like rendering all this extra stuff that we don't need over here? Grab this little guy right here. This thing is going to bring you back to your workable area, and it's going to ensure that it's only rendering what you really want to see. That way you don't need to sit there and wait for your computer to render a ton of stuff. Your computer is probably a lot faster than mine, so you might not have this problem, but just in case, something good to keep in mind. So now we have a character that is blinking crazily. Man, she's blinking like really fast. We're definitely need to spend. And this is a really good point for you to review your work and take a look and ask yourself, does this feel natural or does it feel too quick? It feels too, she looks like a rabid blinker, right? Too much blinking happening. So this is a good point for us to get in there and really begin cleaning things up. And this is a good point where I'm going to take a quick moment to, or should we pause it here? I suppose we could pause it here because the next thing that we're going to do is we need to create a bubble. We need to create a bubble that's going to go down here. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and jump into the bubble. Let's jump into the bubble and then and then we can take a quick break while we figure out the rest of the text. Because I do need to take a quick second to set up our text and show you guys how to do that cool little scrolling text technique right here. So see how that comes in, and then we have the text kind of scroll in. I'll show you guys how to do that too. And you're gonna love me for it. You're gonna love me. Okay, so let's talk about our good old bubble. Let's talk about the good old bubble. So there's a few things that go into this. One is creating the outer shape, And it's as simple as this. Here's how I like to create that shape. Let's create a new one. Let's create a new one together. So it's very simple. In fact, I wanted to create another one up here because I wanted to make a version where it wasn't covering up the character and maybe have it at the top left over here. So the first thing that you'll do is go ahead and just create a, go ahead and create a bubble here. So go ahead and just use your marquee tool. And then go ahead and fill that. I just realized that my, why is fill not working? Oh, I need to create a new layer. Okay, there we go. Edit fill that layer. There we go, foreground color. And then what you're gonna do to make this look a little bit more interesting is go ahead and grab your polygonal lasso tool. And then go ahead and just kind of trim a few of these edges like this. Go ahead and grab something like that. And then hit delete. Okay, do the same thing up here. Maybe just a little edge can be cut off there. Okay, There you go. Now you have something interesting to look at. You can create any sort of different types of shapes. I've just found that making something that's not exactly square tends to make it look a little bit more visually interesting. Okay, so there is your number 1 shape. The next thing that you're going to do is choose the color. Choose the color that goes well with your character. In this case, I'm just going to choose kind of a placeholder because I'm going to fine tune this at the very end. And go ahead and lock your pixels by clicking this little checkerboard button right down here. And then go ahead and fill that. I need Shift F5 as the original hotkey. I need to remember that. Okay, then you're going to hit Control J. You're going to go ahead and hit Control T because you've just duplicated that layer and shrink it down a notch. Shrink it down just a notch, maybe about like right there. You might not see what's happening there at the beginning, but just go ahead and hit Control U and see, lighten it up. Oh, we have our beautiful chat bubble is coming to life. And the next thing that you want to do, there's tons of ways that you can do this, but the way that I would do it here is just go ahead and grab your polygonal lasso tool and create a little arrow right here that's pointing to the character's mouth, right? Because it's very important in comics that it always points towards the mouth. And just go ahead and hit Shift F5 again to fill it. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, your very own beautiful chat bubble. Oh, one more thing that you can do for extra credit is you can add a little drop shadow to it. The way that you're going to do that is hold Alt and have your little drag or your movement tool, which is V selected. Hold Alt and drag that. Wait, does that work? There we go. Hold Alt and drag the chat bubble a little bit downward. See how that duplicates it? So go ahead and do that. Drop it right about there. Move it back behind, right? Because it's going to create that layer. It's going to put it in front of it. You want to move it behind. Then go into your lightness, kind of tweak it down a little bit. See how that gives us a nice little drop shadow? Looks really nice, and you can fine tune it by having your movement tool selected, and you can use the arrow keys to kind of move that cast shadow to wherever you dang well please. Okay, now we're going to talk about a little bit of visual flair on there, which is the halftone. It could be a complete tutorial in itself. However, I'm confident that I can teach you guys in about 30 seconds how to do this. All right, guys, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a new layer. New layer. We're going to grab white. We are going to fill that layer with white. Okay, this needs to be on top of everything. Move to your gradient map. Make sure that you have a gradient of black and white selected, right? And then what you're going to do is you are going to hold Shift and make a little line like this. Click and drag like this. Click and drag, maybe like this. That looks good. That looks really good. You want something like this. Don't drag too far because then you'll have too subtle of a gradient. You want your gradient to be fairly harsh. Something like this. Maybe something like, yeah, like that. That's good. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to go into Filter. You're going to go into Pixelate. We're on the clock here. We need to get this down. Color halftone. You're going to go to here. Make sure all these channels are set to 0. Set your max radius to something around like 40. Play around with the max radius here. I found that maybe between 20 and 40 works well. The canvas is 1080 by 1080 by just for information. And then hit the max radius. Hit OK, and boom, there you go. There's your beautiful, beautiful color halftone, or well, black and white halftone. Second step, move over to your channels, right? Go to layers, and then there should be something next to it called channels. If there's not, then go to window and find channels. Gosh dang it, click channels. Okay, and then click this little button right down here. See where there's like create a new layer, there's one next to it, and there's one all the way to the left. Load channel as a selection. Click that. What that's going to do is it's going to select all of the white areas of your piece, but you want to actually select those black circles. So what you're going to do is hit Shift Control I. That is going to invert your selection, and you're going to get rid of that layer. And what are you going to do next? You're going to choose the color of your choice. You're going to choose any color you dang well please, and then you're going to hit Shift F5. I know that was a little bit longer than a couple minutes, but oh yeah, make sure to make a new layer too. Make a new layer, hit Shift F5 to fill it, and then boom, there you go. Look at that. Look at that color halftone. Now, what can we do with this? Oh man, what could we possibly do with this? Well, what we're going to do is we're actually going to move it back to our bubble, and we're going to hit Alt. We're going to hold Alt, and look at how that changes the actual image of our cursor to something that creates a clipping mask. We're going to clip that right on back to the, whoops. We're going to clip that right back to the good old chat bubble. okay? And you can rotate it a little bit. Oh, you can rotate it a little bit. I find that rotating makes it look nice. And then you'll want to duplicate it, move it to the white portion, and clip that back as well. Clip that back as well, and then lower the opacity. Lowering the opacity will give you a look like this. Isn't that awesome? Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that trick. Okay, so now we have a quirky little chat bubble for our character to speak with, okay? So the last thing that I want to talk to you guys about is how to make the character fade in from the left. Fade in from the left or whatever area that you choose. Because if we open up timeline again, we have our character talking. We have our character talking and mouth flapping and all that good stuff. But we want to make sure that the character fades in from the side. It has that nice little appearance. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our mocha layer as a whole, and we are going to, wait, why is this not allowing me to make a movement? Can I not move this? Can I not move this? Interesting. There may be something that we have to deal with after this. And that is, I thought that you could move groups of layers, but maybe you can't. So what we're going to do for now is we are just going to focus on opacity. Okay, so all you have to do for the beginning of this is click the little stopwatch on opacity, and then that will create a keyframe right there. And the keyframe is technically at 100%. Go ahead and move that keyframe. You can drag it over maybe a few frames. And then with the playhead still at the very beginning, go ahead and take that group and lower the opacity to 0. And what that's going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is see, it's going to allow your character to fade in. Albeit all the timings and things need to be tweaked, but you can do the same thing with the bubble. Let's go ahead and just redo that. Let's rephrase that, okay? So we'll have the character fade in, and then we want the bubble to fade in very soon after that. So let's hit the stopwatch. That's going to create our opacity, right? Make sure the bubble is in position. Wait, where is it? Where has it gone? Oh, that's the old bubble. We need to do other, or we need to do group 2. Group 2 is the actual bubble. There we go. There we go. Oh, and this is a common thing that may happen. If you work or create new layers at a certain point in your timeline, they only begin to exist from that point. So make sure that you actually move this entire group back. Make sure they're existing in that area, okay? And I did that just by dragging it or grabbing it and moving it back to the very beginning. Okay, so now what we can do is we can hit the opacity tool here on the bubble. Let's go and move it out a few frames. And then let's go ahead and drop our opacity to 0, creating another keyframe. That's the most important thing that you need to keep in mind, is see how it just created another keyframe, technically at 0 opacity. So what will happen now is your character fades in, and then the chat bubble. And your character is blinking and talking at a terrible time, terrible timing, which we need to clean up. And this is the point where we're going to take a quick little break. And I'm going to clean all these things up and figure out how to get the character to actually fade in, because that was something else, or like actually move and fade in at the same time. That's what I'm going to figure out for you guys. So I'll see you all in just a moment. Stay tuned. All right, and we are back, and I have figured out how to properly get Mocha sliding into action. And what we're going to be doing after this is jumping into the text reveal. So we're going to be teaching you guys, or I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do the text reveal. And then we are going to go ahead and clean up. Clean it up and finish it up. I don't know why I said wipe it clean. Clean it up. Clean it up, end the episode. Yeah, we'll be very, very happy. Oh, text wipe. That's what I was thinking. Teach you how to do the text wipe. That's why I had that word on the mind. Okay, anyway, so the way that you're going to be doing the move in or the slide in, the slide down with Mocha is because we had the opacity. Remember how we set up the opacity to be working right here in the timeline? In order to affect the position, you cannot work with groups. You must work with a specific layer. So what we're going to do is actually very, very simple. See, if we click on the Mocha layer in our group here, you can see that we have position, opacity, and style as our selections for keyframes. And you can move Mocha around as you please. But what we want to happen is we want her to end up at this exact location, because here's the problem. Is see how when we move to, say, a mouth flap, see how I can move Mocha, but again, it's only moving her within the group. So what we need to make sure is that when Mocha slides in, we need to make sure that she ends up there. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the keyframe on the position where we want her to be. Okay, we want her to be there before she blinks. So it needs to be there. It needs to be at that time that she arrives there. So go ahead and hit the stopwatch on that position. Then go ahead and drag the timeline all the way back to the beginning. And you might want to do this before she fully disappears. Go ahead and move Mocha over to the left side. Now, a little bit goes a long way. You don't need her to come careening in from the left side. See, too much motion? See, it's too crazy. So a little bit goes a long way. So let's have her just start from like right there. Let's have her start from right there. And we'll have something more like that. See? Much more pleasing to the eye, much more easy to take in. We'll go ahead and let that scene load. And then you guys can see the changes that I've made with the mouth flaps and the blinking of the eyes. Hopefully they feel a lot more organic and natural. And what we have here is our finished piece. Now, I'm looking here at the finished version. I still feel like the appearance of Mocha and the slide is too quick. So what we want to do is adjust that timing. And it's very simple. Now that we have our keyframes in place, we're just going to grab that keyframe and we're going to move it out just a little bit more. But that might, oh yeah, see that runs us into this issue where her eyes are blinking before she gets there. So maybe what we need to do instead is have this motion be even less. Let's have this motion be even less. So let's go ahead and grab this keyframe and let's move her like barely almost into position. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. See, subtlety is really where the art form of this lies, is you want to make sure that there's so many subtle things that make huge differences. And that's feeling a heck of a lot better. That's feeling a heck of a lot better. Really digging that. All right, cool. So we are all set up to finish up with the text wipe, the text reveal. Let's go ahead and jump into that. Now, the text reveal, I wish that this is the best way that I've found to be able to do this. It's probably not the best way, but it does dang well work. So let's go ahead and get into that. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is create a new text layer. Create a new text layer, just as simple as typing something in. Let me go ahead and just delete this, and I'll just make a new one to show you every single step. Every single step. So boom, there we go. Text layer. Okay, go boom. Let's go ahead and resize that to the proper size. Let's go ahead and have that reveal. Now you'll quickly start to understand why this type of chat bubble is going to be a bit more of a challenge, but let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing you're going to do is go all the way down to create a mask. So you're going to go down here to your layers, go ahead and create a mask on the layer. You'll see here that a white block or a white space appears on your text layer with a chain link picture next to it. Go ahead and click that chain link off, click it off. And then what you're going to do is you are going to grab your marquee tool. You're going to select that text layer. Bear in mind, if you have multiple text layers, make sure that, actually, I guess it wouldn't affect the other text layers, but you might be wondering how to do multiple lines. And this is where the problem arises, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So go ahead and shift F5 to fill that, and it's going to make your text disappear. Now, what's really cool is if you click V or hit V on your keyboard, and you have this mask selected, make sure that you're actually clicked on that white box. Watch what happens here. Oh, go ahead and hit Control D to deselect where you made that selection. Move this. If you click and move this around, see how you can move just the mask around. Now, can you guess what we're going to do to make this text appear? Yes, of course. We're going to go into our text layer here. And you can see here that there is an option called Layer Mask Position. Layer Mask Position, if I can say that correctly. Go ahead and click the stopwatch on that. Click it once, and then move a couple frames out. And then go ahead and drag that over to the right side. Now make sure you hold Shift. If you hold Shift, it locks it into being on the same axis. Basically, it puts it on a nice little railroad there, so you don't have to worry about like dragging it off to the side and it like reveals like part of the layer like there or like that. Let's go ahead and drag it off to the right like that, and then what you'll see is your text layer reveals itself. It reveals itself so nicely. Isn't that awesome? And just like that, you have your beautiful waifu in your anime mobile game who is talking to you, blinking at you, coming to life before your very own eyes. And I hope that this has been very helpful for you guys. And I want to see these. I want to see these beautiful renditions of your artworks posted to the Instagram and the lovely Lane. And as I said before, you can always download this PSD. It will be completed by this time. You can go through this real time along with me and dissect all these layers, take a look at the timeline for yourself. And hopefully this has been a great bit of value for you guys. So we're going to go ahead and end today's show. Thank you guys so much for joining me on YouTube. I'm going to leave you with some lovely Lane. Let's go ahead and get some lovely Lane going. Let's get some music going. You guys take care of yourselves. I will see you next time. And until then, you guys stay awesome. See ya. Hang on. What the heck is happening? Why is it lagging like that? Something must be going on with the memory on my computer. This desktop needs a bit of an upgrade. Hope you guys don't mind. That should help it. Okay, let's try this again. Will this work a little bit better? Cue up the music. Go, lovely Lane. There we go.